New edition of Celtics Beat, mid-September coming at you, which means summer is ending. It's kids are back to school, vacations are ending. Our guy Gary Washburn joining the program. Adam Kaufman, Evan Valenti. Gary here is, well, he's joining us from vacation because he is so dedicated to this program and to all things CLNS. He's part of the A-List podcast. Make sure you check him out there, as I'm sure you already do. And of course, longtime fixture of the Boston Globe. Gary, good to see you.
Great to be here.
It's great to have you here with us. We appreciate it. You know, I was looking back at, I like to occasionally check out our past shows and, not bug you guys too often is really what it comes down to, because, for the people that out there, don't know, you are incredibly generous with your time with us. And so if I was just, reaching out to you on a weekly basis, I would feel like a jerk. So I like to spread it out a little bit. I didn't realize you hadn't been on the show with us since April, though. A lot's happened since we last spoke.
Yes, lots happened. The finals run, all that.
Yeah.
Yep.
And obviously a busy offseason as well. So it's good to have you here with us. And, we are rapidly approaching, obviously, the start of training camp. Preseason is 17 days away. The C's have been very kind of quietly making some moves with, earlier was Brian Robb. He reported yet Justin Jackson, Denzel Valentine officially joining the training camp roster, which leaves, I believe, one spot, brings them to 19 at this point. So at this point in time to replace Danilo Gallinari, Gary, is it going to be one of us? I mean, who's going to fill out this spot?
Well, I think it's interesting. I don't think they're going to do Carmelo Anthony. I think if they wanted him, they would have signed. I think it would have happened already. So they're either feeling like they can get him when they want, so they're going to let some of the other younger guys see what happens in training camp, maybe sign him during training camp if they feel like there's a need, or two, they're just not interested in bringing him in. I think that they have a chance. I think these young guys, Denzel Valentine, Bruno Caboclo, Mfiondu, and Justin Jackson are all going to compete, for those final spots. Probably one of them I know Mfundo's already on the two-way, so I think they're going to have to figure out whether J.D. Davidson will fill the other two-way spot or whether he makes the roster outright. I think that'll be fascinating to see him and kind of Peyton go at it, because I think J.D. is going to make a real bid to make the regular roster. I think he's like, you know what you can do with your two-way. I'm going to make this team. And the question is, who are the other guys that will compete? I like Justin Jackson. He just has to bring what he did in Summer League to regular games. I think he's kind of been a guy who's bounced around, was a first-round pick. I want to say first-round pick. I always get him and Cameron Johnson from the Suns mixed up, because they came around the same time. But right now, I think they're going to go internal. And I said, I think Sam Hauser can fill the Gallinari role? I'm a little skeptical of that, but we'll see. I think they need another veteran. I just think they need another 30-plus-year-old guy who knows how to play the game and can fill a role and wants to play in a championship team and is not going to bitch and moan for more minutes or make a stir because he had a DNP for a game or two. I think they need that. But if they think that Sam Hauser and, some of those guys can fill that, I'm skeptical.
One thing that we had talked about, Gary, last week with Brian Barrett, and obviously, Evan and I and Brian as well, and your guy Sherrod also, there's a Cuse bias. There's a level of Syracuse bias in wanting to bring in Carmelo Anthony. I know you have been talking that up plenty, whether, obviously in print
He's
or
my
on
2013 MVP.
That's right. I remember that. Are you still catching heat for that?
Yeah, I still catch hell for that. Yeah. But
I think I had you on my old Celtics radio show talking about that at the time.
That's perfectly fine.
That's it. Look, and you could quibble, you could debate how deserving that was. Yeah. Some people obviously out there like to, but we're talking about a different Melo now versus then. We don't need to. We've been having the Melo conversation for weeks. I'm sure on your pod you've been having it for weeks. People have heard it. It's a little tired. We don't need to do it all over again. But one thing we started to get into with Brian a little bit last week is my belief, and we won't rehash this whole thing, but I want your perspective. My belief that for those out there, and there were plenty that didn't believe bringing in Gallo in the first place was that big a deal. But obviously, Brad Stevens, ownership, they thought it was noteworthy to bring him in specifically, and if not him, to bring in a guy that does what he does, and a vet, to your point, who knows his role and is going to come in and fill it and give you a little bit of length and size and instant offense off the bench and all of that stuff. If it was so important to bring in a guy like that, then now you don't have him potentially for the entire year, or at least much of the year leading into the postseason. How important now is it? How much of an onus is there on ownership to go out and replace that guy? Do you have to do it in order to, sort of be true to yourselves, for lack of a better way of putting it?
Yeah, I believe so. I think that, I mean, if you look at the guys who are out there available, Carmelo Anthony's the best kind of person that could fill that role. Now, he's 38, but he played 26 minutes a game last year. He played 69 games of the 82 last year on a team that was chaotic. Last year's Lakers team. He averaged 13 points a game. He shot 38% from three. So this is a guy who has shown, after getting kind of banished from the league for about a year and a half, he's maintained good condition. He can play at a high level, and he can play more than 20 minutes. Now he's 38, but 38 is not 38 of our father's 38. 38 now, and if you keep yourself in good shape and you're lucky not to have those knee replacement, microfractures and back injuries and stuff, you can play in the NBA until you're pushing 40. Jamal Crawford did. There's guys who can do it and avoid major injury and still be productive. Now, Vince Carter. So I think that they need to add. Like, to say Sam Hauser is going to do that, well, damn it, you should have just said that before and not signed Gallo, or saved the money, or did something else. Obviously, you felt a need for a guy who could be 6'11" or 6'9", which Melo's 6'9", Gallo's 6'10", 6'11", who can play that forward position, post up, cause some matchup problems, hit the three. Gallo's not stopping anybody defensively, right? So you're not, Gallo's a better defensive. No, he's not a better defensive player than Melo. So let's throw that out. So to me, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for them to just like, hey, we're just going to stick Sam Hauser. But I do think they need a veteran. I do think that they need a guy with that skill set. And I think his resume has shown, in my opinion, that he still can play at a high level. If you look at the last couple of years, 13, 14, 15 points a game, his 2 years in Portland were very good. Mm-hmm. And I said last year, he played on a team that had nothing but drama, and he maintained, he didn't get caught up in any of it. He was probably the best performing newcomer over Dwight Howard and Russell Westbrook. Kendrick Nunn never played a minute. Like, all these guys, Kent Bazemore that they brought in, he performed the best out of all those guys. So, DeAndre Jordan was on that list too. Like, so if I'm the Celtics, I take a look. Now, I don't know if it's Brad or someone, or Ime's like, no, I don't bring that dude in. I don't know, who's someone just say no, not at all. Because the unfortunate part about Gallo's injury is he got hurt late in the summer. So free agency's damn near done. There's a bunch of minimum guys. Everybody that you look at that's available has kind of you want to bring in Dwight Howard at third bid? Well, DeMarcus Cousins? Well, you want to bring some of these guys in? There's going to be I don't know. There's no guy with a clean resume out there. There just isn't. So do you take a chance on a minimum deal with Melo or someone else, or do you try to keep it trucking and you feel like you can find somebody, or, who knows? Maybe Noah Vonleh goes nuts in camp and claims one of those spots. Maybe Sam Hauser turns into Joe Harris, or turns into this, just ultra, uber productive player. But I think that's asking a lot.
So Ev, I agree with everything Gary was just talking about. My thing, and we may never get an answer to this, but sort of going off of what Gary was just saying, if Brad doesn't want Melo, or Ime doesn't want Melo, or something, like, fine, I can live with that. What I don't want is ownership, and I'm not saying this is the case, I'm just painting the picture. I don't want ownership saying, no, you can't have him, if in fact they do want him. I don't want that to get in the way. That little bit, and it's more than a little bit, we've talked about it in the past, $16 million or whatever it would be to bring in a guy like Melo. But if, I just don't want the spend to get in the way of bringing in a quality player, seemingly a quality player at this stage that could help elevate you that little bit more during the regular season. And most importantly, give your key guys who you're going to need for deep playoff runs a breather, a break.
Yeah, and I'm with you. I viewed the Gallo thing as kind of a big deal. I was kind of the table after the season was done, after the finals was done, for just more scoring off the bench to help Jalen and Jason, because those two guys carried a burden that they just weren't ready for. And if you gave them a little help, it would go a long way. I didn't imagine Malcolm Brogdon coming. So when Gallo comes aboard, I get really excited. Brogdon is just, if you can stay healthy, a much better player on both ends of the floor. So I believe they still need that scoring punch. I think you're really playing with fire here to ask Tatum and Brown to do all this for you all over again. And I think Melo provides you a little different type of scoring than Gallo does. I mean, Gallo as a wide open 3-point shooter is incredibly efficient. But I think Melo does a little bit more as off the dribble in terms of trying to get to the basket or scoring off the dribble than I think Gallo does, at least in my memory. That's the way it feels. And I in stats, I'm not totally positive that'll back that up. But in my memory of watching those two guys recently, Melo has always been a one-on-one isolation scorer. Has gotten it as better over the course of his years, become a better 3-point shooter. He's a better rebounder. And that second jump of Melo's has always been something I think has been really underrated as part of his career. And I just like the fact that he's kind of been there, done that in terms of a guy who's been the number one of a bunch of different teams, can help Jalen and help Jason, move forward with their careers. I mean, I think it's a huge thing personally to me that Melo has been in some areas, mainly New York, that have been tough on him in the media. And as this team progresses, as Jalen and Jason get older, the media scrutiny is only going to be harder to get through. I mean, we've already seen it this offseason with all the speculation of trading Jalen to Brooklyn to get Kevin Durant. Nobody's going to understand battling the media, a tough one at that, than Carmelo Anthony dealing with the New York media that when he was in New York, in national media for that matter. So I think bringing in Melo is kind of a no-brainer. I kind of see what Gary's thinking in terms of maybe the front office and the coaching staff saying, like, before we do that, let's just see if somebody else on this roster, whether it be Noah Vonleh or whether it be a Sam Hauser or whoever, if someone on this roster can give us what Gallo was going to give us. And I think they're just looking to look under every stone before they move to that direction. And if you're Carmelo Anthony, is there really any hurry to sign a contract right now if you're Carmelo Anthony? That spot's going to be there probably in a couple of weeks anyway. So you might as well, sit back and keep in conditioning because, Gary said, if you can stay in shape and, be ready, there'll be a team that'll come calling eventually. I think Melo will have a suitor at some point, whether it's Boston or somebody else, we'll see. I think this particular case is getting a little mixed up with buyout candidates, with the exception of PJ Brown. And we talked about this, Adam, buyout candidates don't really matter that much. I mean, look at Brooklyn the past couple of years with the guys they brought in as buyout guys, and none of them have really done anything. So I think adding Melo is a great idea if you thought that Gallo was important, which I did. So I think as we look forward here, at some point, this particular roster spot, we're not going to talk about it nearly as much. That's the only thing. It's we're every conversation, Gary, over the past couple of months has been just agonizing over this one roster spot, which is number 14 on the roster. Are we making too much of a deal out of this last roster spot when we saw in the NBA playoffs, especially with Boston, they're going to play 8 guys, the 9th and 10th, 11th, 12th. None of those guys really matter. They're going to play 8 or 9 guys, and that's it.
But that's the problem. To me, you got to learn from what Golden State did. Golden State pulled out Gary Payton Jr., Jordan Poole, got minutes. Belicia played during the finals. Golden State went 10 or 11 deep, and they beat the Celtics with depth. They didn't even play Kuminga and Moody. That was the crazy part. They had 2 lottery picks on their bench they didn't think quite was ready, and they sat those guys, and they played Iguodala. The Warriors, just hammered the Celtics with depth. And you've got to me, like, and I said this on other podcasts, like, this is the year, right? This is what you've been, like, what did Parcells say? It's why you've been lifting all those weights. Like, this is why you literally prepare, like Wick and Pags bought the team, obviously to win in 08, but this is the year because you cannot bank on 2023-24. You don't know what's going to happen. You have a healthy Al Horford in the final year of his deal. You have Jason and Jalen entering camp healthy, hopefully for Jason. You've got Marcus Smart. You've got now Malcolm Brogdon. You have Derek White. You have Peyton Pritchard. Like, you have a
Rob Williams.
Rob Williams. Hopefully he's been in bubble wrap all summer, so he's ready to go. He strengthened himself a little bit so he doesn't get so injured. Like, this is the year. This is the year you go deep into the luxury tax and pay out your butt and luxury tax fees because you're trying to win a chip. Look at what the Golden State Warriors spent, right? And I'm not saying the Warriors are the model franchise, and they taught you how to win. You win with depth. You don't get your guys too damn tired. You don't wear your guys out. You don't rely too much on one or two guys. And so if Melo doesn't work, you release him. Do you eat the money? Yes. Unfortunately, you do. But that's why you raised season ticket prices. That's why you charge, $18 for a damn beer at the Garden. To me, like, this is why you do this. Development time is over. As I said before on another podcast, you develop Brown, you've developed Tatum, you developed Grant Williams, you developed Robert Williams, you developed Pritchard. Okay, 5 guys you've essentially drafted and developed. How many more do you want to develop before you really make a run at it? Hauser, like, make a run at this. If it doesn't work, you release them. That's what teams like Brooklyn, I'm not saying I'm gonna be like Brooklyn. Brooklyn's a mess, but those guys, if it doesn't work, don't play them. And I think, like Evan said, he could be a positive influence on Tatum.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you don't think Melo could be a positive influence on Tatum? You don't think Tatum looked up to Melo as a kid?
He
Like,
did.
I mean, give me a break. You don't think he could be a positive influence? You think Melo is so delusional, he's going to be like, man, hey, E-Man, man, I need 30 minutes a game, bro. Like, what's up? Like, do you think
shots.
this is going to happen? He's 38.
Yeah.
Melo wants to win a championship. That's the only thing he hasn't done. I mean, I said on another podcast, it was a miracle that he led Syracuse to the
Watch it.
You bite your tongue.
And I said, the only other starter on that team I could name is Hakeem Ward, who I thought, guys, would be a great pro.
Me too. He was my favorite. Despite Melo, he was my favorite player on that team.
Hakeem Ward fan
loved him.
Train, and gosh, I'm so disappointed he didn't turn into like a 12-year pro, right?
Yeah.
But the only thing that Melo needs to complete his resume is a championship. So any of the guys out there, you would think, DeMarcus Cousins, all these veterans, okay? I'm not talking about they should get for DeMarcus Cousins. They're going to fall in because they're playing for their livelihoods in the damn league. Isaiah Thomas fighting for his livelihood in the league. You got to adjust, or you will be Allen Iverson. You will be nudged out as you plus 30. You're not as healthy anymore. The league will, there's your time. Your time is up. So you can, if Melo wants to play, he's going to have to fall in, unless he's going to go to, freaking Washington, but, Houston, or go somewhere. That's a bad example because he was just in Houston, but one of these bad, go to Utah or go to Indiana or something and play and just ball out because he wants to put up numbers. What does that do for him?
He's already a Hall of Famer.
He's going to the Hall of Fame first ballot. Like,
there's nothing to add to the legacy other than the title.
You can write me and complain that he's not a first ballot Hall of Famer. Damn it, if Manu Ginobili got in, and
how is Melo not a first ballot Hall of Famer?
Also, let's look. We don't need to have this conversation because, of course, I mean, he doesn't ballot. Also, don't forget, like it's not like the NBA Hall of Fame; it's the Basketball Hall of Fame.
So
it is
the Syracuse stuff counts.
The Olympics.
That's a good mark for his resume.
Yeah,
like, he will take a limo. He'll get a limo ride to Springfield. So he's got to fall in. The only thing he's left is winning the championship. He sees LeBron winning 4, Wade winning 3, Bosch winning 2, all his contemporaries he was drafted with winning chips. He hasn't won one. So to me, I don't understand the Celtics thinking in terms of, well, we don't need that guy. You need a veteran. That's why Miami keeps bringing back Udonis Haslem for the 23rd year. Like, because he's a leader.
Yeah.
Guys, question, who's a leader of this team?
We talk about this all the time. We want it to be Tatum. It seems to be smart.
Yeah, I don't think you have a clear cut. Like, it's definitely that guy. You get the lead by example guys. You get, the quiet leaders. You get these guys are more vocal just in the locker room, but not on the court. I do think they have a bunch of guys who could be, or maybe are in their own way leaders, but you don't have that face of the team leader other than Marcus Smart.
Melo could be a leader, but you need a guy who could stabilize the end of the bench, who could tell guys, hey man, this is how you do it, or play 3-on-3 with the young guys after practice. Like, just be a presence where guys could be like, man, when I was early in the league, this guy really helped me. As opposed to like, well, every player, like, we're just going to develop. You're going to bring Luke Cornett. Like, he's going to have a bigger impact than a Melo. Like, Luke Cornett's going to play the third center. Like, I don't understand some of the thinking there. And I'm not, like, hey, I like Melo. Melo's done nothing personally for me. He ain't giving me no pair of his new kicks. Nothing. There's been nothing he's done for me to be like, but I just think for now, and I've said that they could have signed him a couple years ago. He is someone they need scoring. They need a younger version like a Jamal Crawford, but Jamal's 42 years old now. Okay, it ain't happening. They need Isaiah in his prime, or Isaiah who could get buckets. Isaiah's not that guy anymore. So this is the closest thing that you have, as Evan said, to Gallo. Mm-hmm. He's not going to defend. He'll try. I think in Ime's system, it's just like Donovan Mitchell going to Cleveland. Donovan Mitchell's going to have to try to defend now. He's under a new coach who's going to be like, nah, dude, you got to defend. You got too much guys who take pride in defense around you for you to be doing Olay and doing, Matador defense. So you best believe Mitchell will improve as a defender. So you don't think Melo's going to try defensively? He's going to fall in and do little things that help out the team, take a charge. Like, to me, that's what you want. So I don't understand the system, guys, in terms of trying to just either depend on guys that haven't done it before. Hauser hasn't done it before. You're going for a championship. You're not going for all development team. This is not the G League. Like, you need guys that have done it before. And if they don't do it, you either release them, you need a roster spot, you keep them on. That's what I thought last year, honestly, is people like, they should have kept Joe Johnson.
I'm with you on this. I love Joe Johnson. That was great.
He would have been as a 15th man over freaking Juwan Morgan. Like, are you serious?
Hey, Malik Fitz was killing it on the sidelines with some celebration. So I'll keep him.
The only thing those guys did was they were bodies to trade to Indiana for Brogdon. Other than that, they served zero purpose in Boston. You don't think Joe would have pulled Jalen and Jason aside and showed them how to be better pros? Mm-hmm. I'm flabbergasted. Like, I'm not saying, oh, Joe can't get your buckets anymore. That's what the 15th man is for. Like, to me.
Extra coach.
If he accepts the role, like, hey, Joe, there's going to be games you don't play. You can't get upset, or, you can be kind of a de facto coach. If he's good with that, the same with Melo. Like, but to me, we'll have to see. Maybe they're planning something sneaky. Maybe there's a guy overseas, a guy that, hey, shut up. We're going to bring this guy in after he finishes Eurobasket, and he's going to be the guy. But we ain't saying we're telling them we're Luke Cornett and Sam Hauser are our guys right now. But just maybe that's it.
Well, to your point, I'm just looking at this. How many total games? Wait, how many years is this? Hang on. How many total games do you think Udonis Haslem has played in over the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 total seasons, Gary? since he was 36 years old. He's
I would
41
say
now.
80. Like he's played probably a season of that.
I'm going lower.
58.
Wow.
58 total games over the last 6 years for a guy who's just, to Evan's point, a really well-paid member of the coaching staff sitting on the bench. You know, that's,
and they've cleaned up their coaching staff. And I'm like, Gary's been on this longer than anybody, but he was adamant about having former players from the staff.
Yeah.
And I mean, Adam and I
David
rejoiced
Stoudemire.
when, bringing Damon Stoudemire back was just, or aboard, I should say, but back to the NBA, I thought was just absolutely brilliant considering A, the guards they have, but B, just like a really great, tough veteran presence. He did a really good job with Pacific, but I mean, like just having a guy that's been there, done that in the league before. I mean, Ime, you know, former player, but had to really fight to stay on some rosters. You know, and it brings a lot of value and toughness. Like this team, because of Ime, was significantly tougher last year. And I questioned it. Adam, you questioned it. Gary, I'm sure you questioned it. Some of the stuff that he was doing with his team in the media, but you have to at least acknowledge the fact that stuff worked. Like that, this team was maybe some little soft to start the season, but you know, but by the time we got to February, it was like, this team's a juggernaut. This team's rolling along. They're steamrolling teams. And instead of letting teams hang around, they're blowing teams out all 4 quarters of the game. So, you know, maybe bringing another guy in like that. And it doesn't have to be Joe Johnson or Carmelo, but like just a guy who's just been around and knows the ins and outs and the small things. And it maybe not be for Tatum and Brown. Like maybe those 2 guys aren't the 2 guys you're bringing, you know, Carmelo in for. I think there's value there for those 2 guys, but maybe it's not for those 2 guys. And it's definitely not for Al, because Al's been around the block a few times, but maybe it's for Rob, or maybe it's for Grant. Like as much as we talk about Grant never shutting up, maybe someone like Melo's like, Grant, you really just gotta chill out for a little bit.
I don't know, but where, I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
Where I think we're taking this a little too far, because I like all the stuff that we talked about with the bench and bringing in a guy like Stoudemire, and like we can have our fun talking about Haslam for sure, or Joe Johnson. But where this goes a little too far for me is, and sort of circling back to the Melo thing, we don't have to talk about Melo, but him being the poster child for this, I think you need to bring in a guy that can play, you know, a guy that actually can help and can give you minutes and a number of games, not during the playoffs or anything like that. You don't even want the guy to see the floor in the playoffs, ideally, but in the regular season is going to be part of your rotation, is going to, you know, you're not going to crumble when some of your, whether it's Horford or the Williams, you know, Rob in particular with the health concerns, obviously, in particular, Tatum and Brown, maybe Smart, like a guy that can step in and just, you're not going to panic when these guys have nights off. They can give you serviceable minutes. They can give you some points off the bench, and it works. Like someone who's not, you know, Michael Finley or Stephon Marbury, you know, who you're bringing in for like this last NBA hurrah. Like it can be that. This might be it for Melo, obviously, but a guy who can come in and give you something, again, to go full circle, a la Gallo, Gary. Like that's what this team, to me, does need. And maybe Hauser can be that guy. I think you said it best, and we've said it before. I think if they believed Hauser could be that guy, they never would have signed Gallo in the first place. So I don't really have faith that they think that Gallo's going to step in, or Hauser's going to step in fact, be that. Maybe they'll luck out, but I think they need to add that body.
Yeah. I mean, I think they need a vet. And I'm looking at the list of, you know, the list of free agents. It's not a good list. It's not a strong.
Yeah.
Wayne Ellington, Jeremy Lamb, Blake Griffin, Andre Iguodala, Ben McLemore, who I think got a training camp invite. We can talk about the great Tristan Thompson is still out there.
Wasn't so great in the room
for vibes. Just really bad for vibes, man.
Lou Williams, who, you know, is kind of just is winding down. You know, Ed Davis, Avery Bradley, they can bring him back. Like the list of free agents, all of them have a like, well, you know, they're not exciting names anymore. Chris Dunn, Dwight Howard, Lance Stevenson, Paul Millsap, like everybody you talk about is got a butt to them.
Yeah.
And, you know, in addition, including obviously, especially Melo, you know, hey, Facundo Campazzo, who I think I love that guy, but you know, he's out there. the Argentinian point guard. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, there's guys out there, you want to sign Tony Snell? He's available. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Tony
Like
Snell's
Rodney,
most famous for not doing anything in the game where he played 25 minutes or whatever.
yeah, no assist, no rebound, nothing.
Yeah.
That is the marathon game. I think they call it.
Zeros across the board. Look, I was excited about Dunn last year. I hope that would actually work out.
Rodney Hood,
Never got the chance.
Elfrid Payton. Like, there's not every guy out there has this previous stop he sucked or he wasn't as good as advertised. So it's to the point now. Gallo got hurt at a really bad time.
Yeah.
So I know the Celtics are like, listen, we just don't want to bring in a guy. We don't want to do we don't want to just try to shoot for the stars or take a real shot in the dark and hope someone where we don't have good confidence in them. But to me, I definitely think you need another body. You need a veteran. This team lacks leadership. It lacks a veteran player, and that's what you do with the end of the bench. If you're a young team, you fill the end of the bench with prospects. The Celtics have had enough damn prospects. They carried Taco and Tremont Waters for 2 years. They added Jawan Morgans and Malik Fitz, occupying NBA roster spots who weren't players at an NBA level.
Mm-hmm.
It's time for them to fill their bench with players who have a use, have a purpose, whether it be they're a prospect, they're a veteran who can get minutes, or they're an old head who serves more of a leadership role, who can also, like Adam referred to, who could also play. You don't want a guy who can't move anymore. You don't want, some guy preaching about professionalism to a guy. I saw like a recent shot of Joe Johnson, man, he's ripped. Like, he can talk and say, listen, I'm 41. I still wear your asses out in a 3-on-3 game, 3-on-3, half court, I'll get you, so at least be able to still play the game. So I think this is perfect for Boston, but whoever in the organization, whether it's Brad and Ime or both, or Austin Ainge or Mike Zarin, someone just is like, we're not good on Melo.
Just how good are the C's? We keep talking about them. We have been all summer long, going back to the end of their, finals experience, that 6-game loss to Golden State. It's, Celtics are the betting favorites. The Celtics are poised to get back there and represent the East again. And they added Malcolm Brogdon, obviously at the time, Danilo Gallinari. They're incredibly deep. They're incredibly healthy, blah, 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 blah. All the stuff we've all said 1,000 times. But how good, in what's a pretty loaded Eastern Conference, how good are the Boston Celtics? Are we selling anybody else short in this conversation?
Oh, for sure. I mean, Milwaukee, we'll see what Philadelphia can do. Brooklyn, now that they got the band back together, will they be, team dysfunction again? Or will Ben Simmons come back strong and Kyrie playing basically for his NBA career? Because another one of those, like, out of your mind, out of sight, out of mind years for Kyrie, and he's no longer a max player. So he's playing for money. So a lot of motivation there for him. Miami didn't do a whole lot. We'll see what's going on there. It was kind of curious that they kind of re-signed guys, but they didn't bring really anybody in. I know they're in the Donovan Mitchell chase. And then, Cleveland will be a sneaky team, obviously, now with Mitchell and some good young players there. It's a lot. It's a lot of teams that can take, the Celtics out. And I do think they're a very talented team, but things have to work out well. So I think we can assume Jason and Jalen will be good, but Jalen needs to work on his handle and free throws. Jason needs to get off to a better start. Marcus needs to be more consistent. Robert needs to stay healthy. Al hopefully can be a little bit more consistent after he went through kind of a down stretch after he had a really good start. Peyton Pritchard needs to be that kind of knockdown shooter. Derek White needs to overall just be better. Like, he was awful after game 1 of the finals. Like, he was just non-existent. I expected more out of Derek White. He's making $17 million a year. They got to have more out of Derek White. Because now with Brogdon, Do you need Brogdon and White and Smart? Do you need all three of them? Like somebody ain't gonna play, and it might be White. Brogdon, I think, it just needs to stay healthy. Everybody has an if, and I don't know if that makes for a championship team. You don't look at the Warriors and go, well, if Curry hits threes, he's going to hit threes. If Draymond plays D, he's going to play D. Clay was their only major question entering last year, and he stepped up and eventually got his game together. So I think the Celtics have a lot of question marks. And I think the Gallo thing would have probably put them over the top. But I think the rest of the field, very strong, very strong. I mean, you know, I said, look at teams. There's going to be a lot of sneaky teams. What's Atlanta going to be like with DeJounte Murray and Trae Young in that backcourt? Washington made some good improvements. You know, you just don't know. Detroit is drafted well. They're going to, you know, they might win 40 games.
It was like he gave the Celtics hell last year for some reason. I don't know why.
They always give the Celtics hell. I mean, Detroit's could win 40 games this year. You know, Indiana's going to be terrible, but but you look at the rest of the Chicago. We don't know what to make of them with like kind of Lonzo Ball still ailing. But the East is extremely competitive, and so the Celtics to say that they're the favorites. That's really nice. And Vegas loved the Celtics. Like Vegas loved the Celtics all last year. It didn't work out. So I'm not all, the Celtics are head and shoulders above the rest. No, if they had another really good player, I would say that. But they're running it back kind of with Malcolm now, right? That's kind of what they're doing. And they're hoping a full training camp for Derek White. You're hoping that Robert Williams stays healthy. You're hoping Al can dig back into the cocoon and play like a young man like he did most of last year. A lot of that is hope. All that ain't going to work out just by chance, by happenstance. So I think that they need another body. And I think, hey, when the trade deadline comes, or we'll see what happens, there might be somebody coming along. You know, they blew that trade exception. I still can't get over that 17 million just let fly away with the Evan Fournier thing. But I think that they're good. I think they're very good. And they should come back with a, like, F the world, F everybody. We come in and we beating heads in from game one, not this, 6-8 start. Nope. Mm-hmm. We're knocking dudes out. We're Mike Tyson in 1988. We are taking fools out. That's how you got to start. Not 18 and 21 and easing into the season. Nope. They should be really mad starting October 2nd, that first. They should be pissed about losing. Jason should be embarrassed about his performance in the finals. Jalen should be pissed about being on the trade block. Everybody got to be pissed about something.
I was going to say, not Mike Tyson sitting in the box with Robert Kraft in Miami, Mike Tyson. 1988
no.
Mike Tyson.
Mike 88 Mike Tyson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I just so we don't, because maybe next week or week after at some point, we can do the what could sink the Celtics show. Let's not worry about that, because you just outlined a litany of things, obviously, that could sink this team. What makes it go right? What makes this team, what this season is sort of the secret sauce to success that does take them back to a championship round and even potentially over the top to Banner 18?
I think a natural maturity in learning from last year, that you guys are good and you're getting, Jason's getting his commercials, Jalen's getting his respect, Marcus got Defensive Player of the Year, but y'all still ended up without a chip. Draymond was still talking mess in your face. So that has to motivate them. That has to make them mad. That has to make them extra competitive in camp. That has to make guys hungry. I think that natural progression is what will make things work right. Because let's hope Tatum, Tatum's been to weddings and white parties and all that. Let's hope he was in the lab working on that left hand, because the Warriors said, make him drive left. That was their plan. It worked out. So Tatum now has a definitive weakness. Make him go left. And that was what won the series for Golden State. What made Wiggins such an effective defender. Let's see if Jason's been in the lab. Let's see what Jalen has to say. But that natural progression, Adam, of being humiliated in a sense in that series, losing 3 games in a row when you had a chance to go up 3-1, letting go that fourth quarter, that horrible fourth quarter of game 5 when you played such a good third quarter and then just letting go of the rope. And then, like things like that. You got to watch. It's up to them to watch tape. Just look at what you did, and that should motivate you to be better. So to me, natural progression and also the presence of Brogdon to give them a better ball handler and better fourth quarter offense.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with most of that. I mean, I think if Boston ends up at the top of the Eastern Conference, which is possible. I mean, they don't have the best player in the conference. That belongs to Giannis. And there's nothing that Tatum could do at this particular moment that would, in my eyes, make him a better player than Giannis. But if you look at some of the stuff last year towards the end of the year, this comes via B-ball index. In terms of percentile, Tatum in the 80th percentile of passing efficiency, 87th percentile of passing versatility, 94th percentile in passing creation quality, 94th percentile in box creation, 100th percentile in scoring gravity, 96th percentile in playmaking talent. He's got to take a step up in terms of being a better playmaker and getting his guys involved more. I think as you got towards the end of the year, into the playoffs, I was just really impressed. And I fought with people tooth and nail on this. I was really impressed with how much growth we had seen out of Jason Tatum as a ball handler, as a playmaker, and getting guys involved. A lot of times he would see 2, and he's going to see 2 the rest of his life. I mean, that's just the way it's going to go, especially in the playoffs. There are going to be 2 guys coming your way all the time. And you got to be able to make quick decisions out of that, because the quicker you attack, the better shot you're going to get. And I thought he learned a little bit of that going against a bunch of really tough defenses. I think say what you want about the strategy of Budenholzer in Milwaukee, but they have some really tough individual defenders on that team, and they made things hard for Tatum. You go to Miami. Miami has a whole bunch of defenses they're going to throw at you. A very good defensive team, very smart team, and a team that understands that maybe Jalen and Jason are the best ball handlers in the world, and we have to get in their airspace and make them uncomfortable as they dribble. Obviously, Golden State watched that and just made it even harder for Jalen and Jason to dribble. So if to me, Boston takes a step forward and claims Eastern Conference dominance by Jason becoming a better playmaker and Jalen taking a step up in that category as well. I think both of those guys, the finals, as Gary alluded to, they should be pissed. They should be very angry that they were embarrassed in those games. I mean, really embarrassing stuff. And I'm not here to pile on Tatum. I thought he was tremendous. I thought he ran out of gas. And Jalen, if you put a gun to most people's heads, was the best player on the seas in the NBA Finals. So it's not like those guys can take ginormous steps up, but if they take steps forward and start a little hotter, I think this team could win the Eastern Conference. I don't think it's set in stone. I think they are not the best team in the Eastern Conference right now, because I think Giannis, his ability to drop 45 points whenever he wants to, you're just not going to beat that. But I think if they've just not tweak, but just get better at just a few things, that and their new depth with Brogdon, I think will pan out huge. There is a path to number 1 seed in the East. They're on that path. It's just a couple of breaks here and there that will make it. And, it's going to come down to everybody. It's going to come down to health, as it is all the time. But, Tatum is very close to being, I would say, a perennial All-NBA candidate. I think he is, but, the NBA is weird every year. If he can lock himself into a top 10, top 7 NBA player, Brown not too far behind him in top 15, top 20, you'll have enough pieces around him. I think it's just a matter of a few things. And I think this team is very dangerous. I think the Eastern Conference, Gary, we talked about a bunch of stuff. Cleveland's going to be a lot harder, and they're going to be a pain in the ass defensively, with having Mobley and Jared Allen in the middle to block a lot of shots at the rim is going to be really tough. That's a fun team, but I think the competitiveness of the East will bring the best out of these guys, though, because you're not going to be able to take nights off. You're just not. You're not going to be able to take nights off against teams that you've probably done it in the past against. Like Cleveland is no joke now. Atlanta is no joke now. Even a team like Washington, Orlando getting Paolo Banchero like that. There's not a lot of cakewalks in the Eastern Conference anymore. There's just not. So if you don't bring it every night, you're going to get your teeth kicked in. And I think that motivation enough should be enough to get this team refocused and re-energized and towards the top of the East. It's just going to matter in terms of health at the end of the day, who finishes on top. But as Boston proved this past postseason, this team can go on the road and win some tough games. That's not out of the question for them. So seeding always matters, but getting into the top 2 would be ideal for Boston at this point. I think it's totally possible.
So Gary, we can close with this over the last couple of minutes just to sort of put a bow on everything that we're talking about. I just think, we forget or we undervalue sometimes circumstance, right? Think about how different this conversation, a summer's worth of conversations would be, if the Bucks had a healthy Chris Middleton. There's a real good chance Boston goes down in round 2. Now, maybe it doesn't happen. Maybe the Celtics do win that series, but it's certainly not beyond comprehension that the Celtics bow out to the Bucks in round 2. And then we're sitting here today and Jaylen Brown's probably a Brooklyn Net. Kevin Durant is here in Boston. Like there's a trickle down, by one, good all-star level player's injury that could have changed the entire thing, could have sent the whole thing sideways for better or worse. Depends on your perspective out there, obviously. But I think now we are where we are. The Celtics are opening with certain things that they didn't have last year when they still advanced to the NBA finals. There's already, buy into the system and buy into the defense and buy into Ime and, that much higher level of trust in one another. And they've added to the depth, obviously, in Brogdon. And, maybe toward the end of the year, you do get Gallo back or whatever shell of himself he is at that point coming off the injury, he can give you a little something toward the end of the regular season in theory, or they do go out and they add somebody via a smaller trade or a Melo, or, there's an emergence of Hauser or whatever. Ime, believes in Peyton Pritchard now more so than he, buried him the first half of the year on the bench and you never saw him. Like there's just a lot of stuff now that you do have that you didn't have 1 year ago. But I think, and it's kind of a cop-out answer, I'll admit, but because of all of that, I believe that, and this is like the great unknown every team every year, but if this team is healthy, come playoff time, if it is healthy, if it doesn't have that significant injury that it seems like annually they do, but didn't last year because Rob came back and guys gutted through stuff. If they are mostly, their important players are healthy for a stretch run and a deep playoff run, I think they'll be right there, Gary. I really do. I think the talent is there. And they have the experience. We're not going to have that whole entering the NBA finals. The Warriors collectively have, 1 billion games of NBA finals experience and the Celtics have 0. Like none of that is a thing anymore. It's, now it's a carryover year that I think is just so incredibly important if your guys are available.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that if they do what they're supposed to do and they remain healthy, and they fit into, mesh into Ime's system earlier. And I think now they were one of the best defensive teams in the league. That should continue with the addition of Brogdon. Everybody goes in healthy. There's no, Tatum isn't coming off the Olympics. There isn't a lot of Jalen's not coming off, wrist surgery the year before. Like it's all lining up, Adam. It's all lining up. But one, there's going to be a team or two that are going to be much better than we expected, or it could be the Nets, it could be Milwaukee, it could be Philadelphia. There's going to be a team that's going to be like, hey, stop the presses. We're here and we're taking what the Celtics have, because now the Celtics are the big dog. They're the targets. They won the East, right? Say what you want about, if Jimmy Butler, our narrative is different. Adam, you talk about Middleton's injury. If Jimmy Butler hits that pull-up 3, Evan, in Game 7, we have total disaster, total mayhem. Like the team is probably getting blown up if they lost that game. So, as much as we talk about the Middleton injury, we talk about Jimmy deciding to shoot for it all and taking that pull-up 3. And they got through that. So now, no more of these rookie mistakes. Inexperience, like you said, is out the window. Jason and Jalen are no longer kids. As much as like Tatum is still young, he's 24, but his idol, Kobe Bryant, had 3 freaking titles by the time he was 24. So like it's time for Jason. You know, what's Jason gonna? Oh, I'll wait till I'm 27. No, man. This is your 6th year in the league now. It's time for you and Jalen and you guys are good to take this thing over and take it home. It's the pressure's on them. The pressure's on Ime, the pressure's on the bench, the pressure's on. So let's see how they deal with it. But like you said, if everything works out, barring injury, barring, something unforeseen and unfortunate happening to them, they should prevail because the Bucks didn't do much. I mean, they signed Joe Ingles, like they re-signed Connaughton, they re-signed Bobby Portis, but the Bucks are kind of running it back.
Mm-hmm.
The Sixers, we don't know what to make of Harden. Embiid's going to be Embiid. They signed Montrezl Harrell. They got tougher, PJ Tucker. But is that going to mean, are they going to, win the East? Is that enough to win the East? Brooklyn, we don't know what's going to happen there. Cleveland, I think might be a year away, but it could be now. So everybody has some question marks, including the Celtics, but the Celtics have the least question marks. And so if everything works out and they come up with their might, because I think it's up here for them, it's not physical, they should take it. Like Robert Williams, let's hope he comes to camp in tremendous shape and all his extremities are, fine. He's, over the knee stuff. So, he doesn't get a hip edema, like all these little things that happen. Like hopefully he went to Duke University and got a complete checkup and is clean and is like, okay, Robert, you ready to play hoop? Because we haven't heard much about his recovery because obviously he wasn't healthy, but like everything, everything, if everybody comes back, there's no reason why they shouldn't win it.
Our good friend Gary Washburn here from the Boston Globe and the A-List podcast as well with Sherrod and Kwani. Anything big that you want to promote? Anything special you guys have going on the show this week or next?
We'll just be obviously playing up. The season's coming and training camp starts about 10 days. So we're just, we're going to give you all the best and, most Celtics coverage. And I said at the Globe where I work and obviously in the podcast. So it's a lot of fun and we'll start having more special guests as the season approaches. So yeah, lots to look forward to.
Excellent. Ev, always a pleasure, my friend. And
didn't miss anything. It looks like I'm going through Twitter. I don't think
the annual or
didn't miss any news yet, so we're good.
The every week check Twitter at the very end of the show.
I do this.
It blows everything up.
Just check it.
Gary, you have any news you want to break that you're not like waiting to put out 2 hours from now?
No breaking news. If I did, I'd tell you, but no breaking news. I got an email like you're not writing enough about the Celtics. I'm like, one, it's 2 weeks before training camp. What do you want me to write?
Yeah.
And two, there's not a lot going on. You want training camp invite stuff? Okay. They're not trading for Durant. So sorry, there's not a lot going on right now.
We got some fun stuff coming up throughout this season as well that we're excited to tell you about once we jump into it, but we'll save that for a future show. It's been fun. Thanks for being with us, obviously. Rate, review, subscribe, all that good stuff. I wait to tell you until the end. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks.